Okay, New Zealand, I think I might owe you an apology. Why? Because I spent 2 weeks in one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and somehow managed to experience very little of it. The thing is that by the time I had realized my mistake, it was too late. Too much time had passed and I had to move on. My name is Josh, and I'm a digital nomad who lives in a different country every single month. Join me as I reflect on what I did right and what I did wrong on my trip to one of the most stunning island nations on the planet, New Zealand. Let's start off with what went right, because ultimately I took a lot of great things away from my time in New Zealand. My journey started where it does for many people, in Auckland, New Zealand's largest city. I flew there to meet up with my dad after spending some time with him in Australia. And if you've been following my Australia series, you know that by the time I sorted out some issues with my NZ ETA, my dad only had a few days left in New Zealand, and we were sort of strapped for time. So we decided to make the most out of what time we had by booking a full-day regional tour of some of the best natural sites on the North Island. And this was absolutely something that went right. The headliner of this tour is visiting the Waitomo Glowworm Caves in order to see some of New Zealand's famous, you guessed it, glowworms. Basically, you head to this huge underground cavern in Waitomo where you have the chance to hop into a boat and see one of nature's most beautiful bioluminescent displays for your own eyes. And when I say for your own eyes, I do actually mean your own eyes. They don't allow any filming or video inside the caves for the sake of the worms, so while I can show you some of these clips I found online, if you truly want the experience, you'll have to visit for yourself. And I have a tour booking link for you down in the description if you'd like to do it. And honestly, you should. This was so great. I mean, no one fell out of the boat, and we all got to see some insane bugs just putting on this huge natural light show for us. Plus, I bought this extremely cute kiwi plush that I will treasure for the rest of my days. All good things, all good things. After briefly stopping to cross this really cool swing bridge that seemingly leads to nowhere, we headed for the next major site on the tour, which is called Puia Geothermal Park. It's located in Rotorua, which is ultimately about a 3-hour drive away from Auckland. Puia is great because it's sort of like two exciting things all rolled into one. Firstly, you get this incredible geothermal park, which has geysers that erupt regularly. Some of them even go off several times per hour, so there's a really good chance that you'll get to see it for yourself if you visit. The tour will sometimes try to move things along, but thankfully they gave us a little extra time to make sure we got to see the geysers erupting, which was really cool. Aside from the geysers and the mud pools, maybe the best part of this experience was actually getting to immerse ourselves in Maori culture. Puia provides a sort of in-person display of Maori wood, stone, and bone carvings, as well as traditional weaving. I loved this. It's such a great introduction to Maori culture for foreigners like myself. The regional elements and the native history of New Zealand was probably my favorite experience while visiting the country. This day tour on the whole was amazing, and one of the best things I did during my time in New Zealand. No regrets or apologies for this. A couple days later, my dad finished his trip and he headed to the airport to take the long journey back to the States. But my story doesn't end here, because I still had about 10 days left in New Zealand on my own. Unfortunately, I didn't use that time very well, and that's the first thing that I should apologize for. If that tour taught me anything, it's that the real beauty and magic of New Zealand is in its nature. So, you'd think, having now acquired this information, that I would have spent a lot more of my remaining time in New Zealand exploring the outdoors. You know, maybe getting to other cities in the north, or even flying down to the South Island. But no, I didn't. In fact, for the remainder of my time in New Zealand, I pretty much stayed within the greater Auckland area. For that, I do have to apologize, New Zealand. I did you dirty, I fear. So why did this happen? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The hardest part of being a digital nomad, as opposed to someone visiting on just a regular old holiday, is that I had so much work to do. I'm a freelancer, and my workload ebbs and flows. There are slow months and there are busy months, and I genuinely was swamped with work and simply barely had any time to step away from my computer screen. It is a travesty travesty. I'm genuinely still sad about it. However, I will say that I did get the chance to experience some incredible things in and around Auckland. The best was undoubtedly taking a trip to Waiheke Island. Prior to my delayed arrival into New Zealand, my dad had visited Waiheke Island on his own and was just raving to me about it. And so I knew that it was something I absolutely had to make time for. The weather was looking too good to stay inside, and the guilt was really starting to eat at me. So one morning, I just did it. I irresponsibly tore myself away from my laptop and walked down to Auckland's primary port area, where I was able to buy a ferry ticket to travel from Auckland to Waiheke Island. The ferry ride is a little over half an hour, and it's honestly an experience all by itself. I really love boats. Can you tell? Once on Waiheke Island, you have a bunch of options for what to actually do. There is a hop-on, hop-off bus that you can get a ticket for that will take you all around the island to various stops. That said, I decided I was going to focus on just two primary things as to not get too overloaded. The first, Mudbrick Winery. There are a number of different wineries on Waiheke Island. It's sort of its main thing, and arbitrarily, I chose this one. If I'm being honest, it was mostly just because of its proximity to the port. But I really truly was not disappointed. This did the job for me. I mean, it was absolutely stunning. I was truly tempted to just spend my whole day here by itself. I walked around the premises for a bit. There was a whole wedding happening, and truly good for them. What a beautiful day and location for a wedding. There were lemon trees, which smelled so good and were just super fun and beautiful to walk through. And then, of course, there's the wine. I did a wine sampling inside the cellar. There, you can choose what kind of tasting experience you want. I chose the Waiheke one because naturally that is where I was at, and I'm all for the local experiences. This is a pretty great deal because you get half a glass of 5 whole different types of wine. Super fun. I loved tasting them all. I don't really know how to talk about wine in a sophisticated way, but just trust me when I say, I was having a good time. Also, please take a look at this family of ducks that walked by during my tasting. This is straight out of a fairy tale, for real. I spent a good couple hours at Mudbrick before ultimately heading toward my second and final stop on Waiheke Island, the nearby town of ONEROA. It's a super cute little seaside town, and ONEROA has its own beach, which I made sure to slowly stroll along, yearning for romance and leaning all the way into the whimsy, such as you do on a beach like this. Ultimately, the weather started to shift, and as the rain approached, I decided to get off my feet and grab some food at a restaurant in town called the Oyster Inn. Now, my intention here was to get some of Auckland's famous fish and chips. However, that quickly changed when they brought out the menu, and I remembered that it was Sunday. And on Sundays, some places have a Sunday roast available. Now, I was lucky enough to experience a Sunday roast in London with some of my friends in the past, and so I know just what's possible with a meal like this. It's the whole thing. This is roast beef sirloin and Yorkshire pudding and a whole bunch of expertly prepared vegetables. And you might not expect it, but honestly, the veggies are probably the highlight. There's so much flavor and seasoning and oil added into these veggies. It's unbelievable. Altogether, this was truly just an absolute delight and a fantastic meal. But even with everything that I just said, this does kind of represent another important thing that I feel like I should apologize for. I barely got to try any New Zealand local food. I mean, I ate some oysters with my dad. I had this Sunday roast. I ate a lamington or two. But if I'm being honest, I really struggled to identify and find food that felt uniquely Kiwi. And as someone who really loves exploring the local cuisine, this was particularly upsetting for me. Before my visit, everyone told me that the best way to explore New Zealand is by using a car, a rented vehicle of your own that you can use to drive around the glorious landscapes and see all the glorious sights. Unfortunately, I don't really drive. Not only that, but as someone who is working and traveling at the same time, I sometimes am stuck inside. Even on a beautiful day, I might have to just sit at the computer and work. This gets to me sometimes, and for good reason. But you know what? I think a part of what makes travel great is learning how to embrace whatever version of life you're given the opportunity to experience in a new place. In that sense, I'm trying not to focus on the things I missed out on, but instead to focus on the things I got to experience. I had the chance to see so much of Auckland, and in a small way, I got a taste of what it's like to truly live there, to wake up, to go out and run errands or pick up groceries, and then just simply sit down and go to work. And even if that's not what I most wanted, it's still a unique and new experience that is completely my own. Ultimately, New Zealand, I apologize. I came with the intention to do and see so much more. With that said, I know that I'll be back, and I know that my next experience will also be totally new and totally imperfect, but at the end of the day, totally unique. And finding unique travel experiences to call your own is really what it's all about.